Eric Booth. Bienvenido, welcome Eric Booth. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. Y Juan Antonio Cuellar, adelante.
Gracias. Voy a presentar a una persona que ha sido supremamente importante desde hace cerca de 3 décadas en todo el movimiento sinfónico juvenil en Latinoamérica y en su migración, sobre todo, hacia los Estados Unidos. Él es el creador del sistema USA, que compila y congrega a todos los programas, que son ya casi 200 programas en todos los Estados Unidos, inspirados en el modelo del sistema de orquestas de Venezuela. Muy brevemente voy a compartir un par de láminas. Básicamente conocí yo a Eric Booth a través de este primer libro que se llama The Music Teaching Artist's Bible, Becoming a Virtuoso Teacher or Educator. Y entonces nos encontramos con ese libro, esto era año 2007 o algo así, 2008. Y fue fascinante ver el concepto detrás de este libro. El concepto detrás de este libro es que es el artista educador. No el concepto del pedagogo de artes o el pedagogo musical. El concepto de un artista, un verdadero músico artista, que como expresión de su arte enseña. Que la enseñanza es una expresión suprema, sublime del arte que ejecuta. Es decir, ser maestro es el nivel supremo del ejercicio de la música en este caso, o del arte en general. Él había escrito otro libro, que es el que está justo a la derecha, años antes, que tiene que ver con The Everyday Work of Art, que es cómo hacer de cada día una obra de arte, cómo hacer que la creatividad artística sea permanente, esté permanentemente con nosotros. Y después de sus antecesores y otro par de libros, publicó en el año 2016 o 17, junto con Trisha Turnstall, publicó este libro que se llama Playing for Their Lives, The Global El Sistema Movement for Social Change Through Music, incluyendo testimonios de diferentes partes del mundo, ciertamente de Latinoamérica, de movimientos, de programas, de iniciativas privadas y públicas inspiradas en el sistema de orquestas de Venezuela. Y aquí hay una reseña muy importante de Esperanza Azteca, que fue este programa creado por Fundación Azteca en el año 2009 y que ha beneficiado a miles y miles de niños y jóvenes por todo el territorio nacional. Y pues nos complace mucho, enormemente, tener con nosotros a Eric Booth, una personalidad realmente influyente, realmente prominente en el mundo de la música como desarrollo social y educativo. Ha estudiado a profundidad las dimensiones, las diferentes dimensiones de la educación musical basada en el modelo de enseñanza colaborativo, enfocalizado en el hacer música juntos y en generar aprendizajes de diferente naturaleza que tienen que ver con el desarrollo humano. Eric, I think I made a very brief summary of what happened. Eric y yo nos encontramos cuando yo estaba trabajando en Batuta, en la Fundación Batuta en Colombia, que es otro de los programas que está aquí reseñado. Y desde allí empezamos a generar una relación maravillosa. Tuve la oportunidad de ser parte del primer Congreso Mundial de Teaching Artists. Eric, I just told them that we met at Batuta many years ago, and that I had the opportunity to join you with the first international conference on teaching artistry that took place in Oslo back in, I don't know,
2012.
2000, 12, que tuvo lugar en 2012. I would like to make a very important announcement. Voy a hacer un aviso muy importante antes de darle la palabra a Eric. Quiero contarles que en la Fundación Azteca hemos decidido que vamos a seguir adelante con el plan, vamos a hacer la residencia artística en la ciudad de Puebla entre los días 15 y 20 de junio, con llegada el día 14 y salida el día 21. Vamos a estar por fin juntos, vamos a por fin poder tocar juntos, vamos a hacer la quinta sinfonía de Tchaikovsky al mayor nivel posible con el liderazgo de Paolo Bortolameoli y el apoyo de los maestros de la Academia y de los maestros del Instituto Superior de Música Esperanza Azteca en Puebla, que estarán súper complacidos con esa generosidad y esa hospitalidad característica de los mexicanos de recibirlos en su casa en Puebla. Y estamos pues muy contentos de tomar esta decisión. Es una decisión difícil por las condiciones en las que nos encontramos debido a la pandemia y sus consecuencias, pero vamos a comprometernos con ejercer el mayor rigor. Y cuando digo vamos a comprometernos, no me refiero a la organización ni a la administración, sino a cada uno de todos nosotros los que vamos a participar en esto. Tenemos que demostrar que con la corresponsabilidad y con el ejercicio de la autodisciplina característica de la música podemos prevenir, podemos evitar el contagio y podemos darle a México el primer concierto después de un año, de más de un año de silencio en las artes. Creo que tenemos esa oportunidad y quiero pues llenarlos a todos de entusiasmo para que en este mes que nos queda podamos prepararnos lo mejor posible para hacer de esta residencia realmente algo espectacular para la vida de cada uno y para las artes y la cultura en México. I just announced, Eric, that we are going to go with the idea of a in-presence residency in Puebla between June 14th and 21st. And I hope that everyone gets this information with a lot of enthusiasm and commitment to make this very safe and very productive musically. Entonces, sin más, ya les enviaremos información más detallada al respecto. Sin más, los dejo en compañía de nuestro gran amigo Eric Booth, persona prominente en el mundo que nosotros habitamos. Welcome, Eric. I hope you have a great time in this hour with our fellows.
Thank you, Juan Antonio. So nice to see you again. And hello, everyone. And how lucky for me to come right after such big, beautiful news. It feels like the new chapter begins. We get to be together. This difficult time starts to fall behind us, and we open the next chapter. I have the feeling that the pandemic has accelerated change. We don't go back exactly to what was. We speed up our discovery of what comes next. In this chunk of time, I hope to introduce you to some fresh thinking about your maybe being a teacher and maybe being a teaching artist. That is one part of teaching that has been especially important to me, and I'll wish to share that with you today. First, my apologies that I do not speak Spanish. It's so embarrassing. It would be so much better if I did. And so thanks to Maria, who will be typing very fast and will allow for questions in the later part of our time together. As if it weren't bad enough that I don't speak Spanish, I am also not a musician. I am completely stupid about music, and I protect my stupidity at all costs because it is one of the most valuable things I can bring to classical music. I was a New York actor doing shows on Broadway, didn't like it very much, and got a job as a teaching artist in theater. And this was so interesting to me that I put all my energy into this new field, and Juilliard hired me to start the teaching artist program for graduate students of music at Juilliard. So this poor, innocent theater person was thrust into the weird classical music world that I have been working in for the last 35 years. And my goal is to bring the outsider's mind to the service of what I think will be the musicians of the 21st century. And that's why I feel teaching is such an important idea, because I think every 21st century musician needs some educator's skills. Maybe not the skills they experienced when they were learning music, but the kinds of skills we will introduce today. One little story about Juilliard. When I started this program, everyone at Juilliard sort of laughed at it. They thought, oh, those poor musicians who think it's nice to teach, isn't that sweet? Their careers don't have a chance. They like children. They're not going anywhere. So we practice teaching artist skills off in the corner of the building. But 10 years later, we did research that showed those teaching artist Juilliard students were, number one, having much more interesting careers. They had more creative control. They had more innovative projects. They were happier. And number two, they were making more money. This got the attention of those Juilliard students who had looked down their noses at musicians who wanted to become teaching artists, and the field has grown since that time. I would like to start by giving a little poll to find out a little bit what you already think about being an educator. So we have some poll questions for you. And if you would give a quick answer to, we will have 4 questions, it will help all of us realize where this academy stands in relation to teaching during their careers. Can we see poll question number 1?
Mientras sale la pregunta que debemos contestar, les comento a todos y a todas que en el chat pueden ir encontrando la traducción a español de la plática, ¿ok? Y ahí mismo pueden ir marcando preguntas que quieran hacerle al maestro Eric Booth.
I think the poll will come up on the screen for people to vote, I think. There we go. Perfect. Okay, let's end the poll. Look at this. This group has a strong answer in a little bit. So this is a group that has done a little teaching, right what I expected, and a good place to start from. Let's see poll number 2. Okay, and let's end the poll. Okay, we have some work to do. because this group wants to be teaching pretty often. So you understand already that teaching is going to be a big part of your career, and you only have a little experience now. So there is that gap, and we will look at how to fill that gap. Let's look at the third poll. Okay, let's end that poll and look at those results. No surprise that private lessons will be the most popular teaching. Good money in private lessons, necessary income, and to be very strong in private lessons, teaching artist skills make you a great private teacher. And then we see a lot of interest in the other ways that you become a teacher. I think of the 21st century musician as a ninja teaching artist, able to have educator skills that can go in many different directions, not just be limited and careful, but in fact be playful and curious, to engage in the many different ways we can teach. And let's go to the final poll. And let's end this poll. And no surprise, the creating unique performances, that is the most outstanding benefit from my Juilliard students. They think much more imaginatively about what their string quartet can do. They think about whole new ways to organize a performance that reaches out further than just the audience that already loves classical music. So I'm happy to see the recognition that teaching artistry opens up your career. Thank you for the poll. Beautiful. And we have these other skills that many of you want to gain a number of them. So let me just make a couple of points as we start to think about teaching. In my view, teaching artistry or being a teacher is not that you're a musician, oh, and then you need to learn some teaching skills that you keep over here in a handbag and use every so often. Teaching is opening wider your responsibility and opportunity as an artist. The teaching of an artist, the number one job of an artist is to make beautiful worlds that have power when they are shared with other people. The number one job of a teaching artist is to activate the artistry of other people. This gigantic universal power in all human beings. And that power is so strong that it can be directed to many different purposes. It's that power is awake. It can be directed toward greater health, which is why we see such fast growth in music for health. Around the world, there is new employment every week in music for health. That power of artistry can be channeled into schools to create a more vibrant school, or into a community to create a happier community, or, and this is the most important for you, it can be channeled into greater appreciation of those worlds of music that musicians make. The musician, you work so hard to make a beautiful, perfect piece of art, Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony. And the teaching artist says, it doesn't end there. There are things we can do to help people who don't already love classical music come into Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony and discover what's inside it that's so powerful. That's the important role of teaching artistry, to open wider the invitation into these beautiful works. I refer to a group that I call the Art Club. In America, these are the people who buy the symphony tickets. Very important for money and for sustainability. 5% of the population. 5%. 95% of the people in America do not feel they are part of the art club. Teaching artists specialize in being able to open up what is inside classical music so that many more people can go inside and, here's the most important phrase, make personally relevant connections inside the music. That's the skill of teaching artistry. Not to tell people why they should like this piece of music, but to prepare people to discover why this matters to their lives. That is the thing that brings them back. And that's why teaching artists matter so very much. Okay, I'm going to give you a question to answer in the chat box. And this is a question for all education. And would you type your answer into the chat box? And this first question comes from research at Harvard University. And in English, it asks the question that has a blank spot in it for you to add your word. So in English, it says, by far and away, the great, oh, there it is. Thank you, Maria. By far and away, the greatest determinant of quality in learning, arts learning, is, type in your answer. Type in what you think is by far the most important thing in making high quality arts learning. Communication, passion, of course, feelings. We go right to our feelings as the most important thing. Yeah. Determination from Oscar. Motivation from Carlos. A lot of people think passion. Okay, I'm going to give you the answer from Harvard researchers. They say, by far and away, the most important thing that leads to quality in learning is intrinsic motivation, the motivation of the learner. As I think it was Carlos had that answer. This is the most important thing. It's passion, maybe, but intrinsic motivation means you are pouring yourself into the work for your own personal reasons, because of passion, but it's because of you, not because of the other reasons people learn music, called extrinsic motivation, to please the teacher, because your parents thought you should, because everyone else is doing it. The most important is the internal motivation, and good teachers know how to awaken that hunger to learn, because as you know from your own experience, if you have that hunger for yourself, doesn't have to be the best teacher, doesn't have to be the best instrument, you can turn any opportunity into great learning. And another student who does not have this hunger, I don't care how good a teacher you are, the learning, not so great. So as a teacher, whether private lesson or a class, your number one job is to awaken the intrinsic motivation of the learners. So here comes the second and important teacher's question for you to answer in the chat box. How do we do that? How do teachers awaken the hunger of intrinsic motivation in the learner? Can you put some answers in the chat box? And I'll remind you, you can't tell somebody to be intrinsically motivated. They have to awaken it in themselves. So what do we know as teachers that nurtures the most important thing? Love, encouragement. I see some answers coming. Again, we go to the heart. And remember, if this is the most important thing, this is the most important thing for teachers. This is the question we must ask ourselves every day. How can I nurture more hunger to learn? And I will say, I see many mistakes. I see well-intentioned teachers do things that we know actually suppresses, pushes down the hunger. For example, praise. We think encouraging a student with lots of praise builds their hunger. It actually reduces their hunger, because then they start to achieve to please you, not to please themselves. I'm going to tell you what research tells us are 3 things to keep in mind to teach for intrinsic motivation. These are the things a teacher must hold in mind all the time. Number 1, I'll write it in the chat. Autonomy. The learner must feel she is in charge. Not that she is compliant and doing what you ask, but she has taken the power of her own learning journey into her own hands. That is essential for high quality learning. Second is, the research says, mastery. The learner must know he is getting better in a journey that matters to him. So you telling the learner he's getting better is not what matters. What matters is the learner knows he's getting better and knows where he's heading. Mastery. And third is sometimes has two terms. The learner must be in connection with others. This is the power of the orchestra. When all have group intrinsic motivation, and purpose lets the learner know it matters to more people than just little me. This, what we're working so hard at, matters in the world. If the learner feels that, the learning gets way better, gets faster, gets more committed, and starts to develop that passion. So those three things to keep in mind. You as a teacher, whatever teaching you do for the rest of your life, give over the learning to the learner so they take charge. There are many things a teacher can do to help that. Number two, make sure the learner knows she's her own accurate assessment. So she feels in her bones she's getting better. And third, remember relationships. You may be alone in the practice room, but what nurtures motivation is the group. So now I want to introduce this part of teaching called teaching artistry. And this is where the number one goal is to activate the artistry of other people. People often ask me, what's the difference between being a music teacher and being a music teaching artist? Is there a difference? And if your purpose is to teach someone to make music, you are a music teacher. Beautiful, powerful. We need many thousands of you. If your job is to wake up the artist in a musician, you are a teaching artist. And I would contend the most powerful private lesson is when you have the music teacher and the teaching artist in the same person, going back and forth, not just learning technique, but becoming an artist through the language of music. And teaching artists know how to do that. That is why teaching artists are the future. What we don't need perfect technicians in the 21st century in the same numbers as we have in the past. We need great technical musicians who can also open wide the power of this art form. And that is what a teaching artist does. Opens up the art club for those who were not born with the good fortune of a background that takes them in and around classical music. Juan Antonio, number one, could you screen share the page called The Fundamentals? This introduces the 6 basic ideas of teaching artistry. And the people in my field, thousands of them, tens of thousands around the world, we have started the International Teaching Artists Conference, where Juan Antonio Cuellar visited, and our first one. These are the 6 qualities that teaching artists focus on. Can we screen share? The fundamentals. So these are the 6 fundamentals that teaching artistry is built on. And we'll talk a little about each one. I've already told you, activating artistry, number 1 job. And think about it. How do you awaken the artist in other people? I will say from my own experience, that is the most beautiful work I do in the world. That is the greatest gift I can give to other people. And we need thousands of artists who can do that to keep classical music growing, so that their art awakens and they can go inside Tchaikovsky's Fifth. And for me, Penderecki, I need some help to be able to get into Penderecki. It sounds terrible when I first hear it, but with the help of a teaching artist, I can go inside and find something that matters to my life. And that brings me back. Teaching artists. Another thing teaching artists are good at is they specialize in creative processes. Musicians specialize in creative products. You can make beautiful nouns of art. Teaching artists are specialists in the verbs of art. How people make those things and how people can organize their attention to go inside and discover new things. That is the skill of a teaching artist, to love the processes and not just the products. Teaching artists, this third one, are very good at creating environments in which people want to explore, in which people want to discover things. And imagine doing a workshop where people are trying new ideas in preparation for hearing a work of art. Let me give you 2 examples from my own experience. For many years, I was hired by Tanglewood, which is the summer home of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, to design the family concerts. And the head of Tanglewood told me to create a new kind of family concert, because if she had to hear Tubby the tuba one more time, she would kill herself. So we created teaching artist concerts. And here's one piece of one. The concert was about music derived from nature. 4 young conductors come to the front of the stage at the beginning of the concert, don't say a word, but they gesture that this part of the audience should follow them. So they made a gigantic sound improvisation with 1,500 people of a rainstorm. from quiet rain to louder rain, till they were banging chairs to make thunder. And for about 3 minutes, they had a thunderstorm that quieted. And then the orchestra came right in with the fourth movement of Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, the thunderstorm movement. And all those people, little people, grown-ups, people who never were at a concert before, could follow the entire fourth movement with full attention because they were watching how Beethoven made a thunderstorm like the one they had just made. Full attention for the whole movement because of the activity. I'll give you one more example from Tanglewood. The concert was music, what makes music sound heroic? You know, that strong, heroic sound of orchestras. So the orchestra played the most boring version of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And we took suggestions from the audience for how to change it to make it more heroic. So we got some bad ideas. People calling out, play it louder. Not very heroic. Play it faster. We tried it, not very heroic. Finally, one kid yells out, brass. So the brass took the melody and everyone goes, oh yeah, now we are getting somewhere. They added more ideas and created this triumphant sound. And we had 6 ideas that came from them about how you create the heroic sound. We didn't tell them anything, but for the whole rest of the concert, they could follow their 6 ideas of the heroic sound. Teaching artists. They owned the ideas because of their natural musical competence. And consequently, it changed the way they could listen and discover. All right. Let me touch on these last few ideas. Deftness with inquiry. Teaching artists think of every encounter with learners as an exploration. It's not about information exchange, although information will arise, but it's about curiosity and discovery. And they are co-learners. They're learning with the participants. They're not the expert telling, they are the fellow explorer. And that makes all the difference. Authenticity. This is an important one. You see these words, the law of 80%. I made that up. And I call it a law because that sounds scary. And the number 80% gives the impression I've done some research, which is not true. But here is the law of 80%. 80% of what you teach is who you are. 80%. The learning that those learner takes is from how you are in the room with them. What it means for them to be with a curious, passionate artist who is discovering new things with them. That is your most powerful tool. It's a high responsibility because it means we can't be lazy. We can't assume we know all the answers. We must be our discovering artist selves with them. That's our power of authenticity. And finally, teaching artists are always about discovering what's new, what's next. They lean forward into the art form rather than leaning back into what is already known. That's why ninja teaching artists are the future. All right. We have a few minutes when you might have a question or two about teaching artists or how one makes money as a teaching artist, because I contend if you get good as a teaching artist, your finances improve. And there are thousands of teaching artists who can affirm that. Do we have a question? If so, put it in the chat box or, oh yeah, here we have a question. So for the student to have an interpretation or better create. So Julio is inviting us to think about different kinds of relationship between teacher and learner. And sometimes students can be a pain in the ass. Like they know everything and you should do it. You should listen to me because I know. It is an invitation into what I was just describing, learning together, exploring ideas together. And the good teaching artist can say to that student, ah, you have a theory. I have a theory too. Let's test out these theories. It isn't that one is right and one is wrong. What is the value in your idea? Let's explore it. And you model what an artist does when trying out an idea, with curiosity, with a good, clear mind, and good questions. So if you have a student, Julio, who is strong in, I think I have something important to say, you encourage it, but it's not about you versus me. It's about quality. So together, you explore quality. I remember seeing a teaching artist work with a room full of 9-year-old, very bad violinists. And he said, why do we play music? And they had many ideas. And one finally said, to make people happy. And he said, good. So how should we play this section that will make people happier? So they began to explore interpretation for a purpose. You model the way an artist is open to exploration, and you think of this as a colleague. And if the young musician is obnoxious, you still keep your eye on quality and you take a deep breath. Is there another question? We have just one more minute.
¿Alguien tiene otra pregunta? Tenemos tiempo para una pregunta más. In the chat, he's asking if you have had difficulties while teaching.
Only every day. Yes, nonstop. Because my aspiration is so high. And sometimes angry students, difficult, but if you look at them as artists with potential, even when they cause trouble, things slowly start to change. There are some things to learn about handling a difficult student, but not so much. You mostly know how to do it now. And the way you win them over is with fun, irresistibly interesting ideas and the passion for their potential. This has served me well for 40 years, even in very difficult circumstances. The authenticity brings people around to their artistic potential almost all the time. Not always, but almost all the time. And I find so much joy in making that connection, even with difficult students, that keeps my energy going. So we have run out of time for today. And my hope is we planted a seed of curiosity for you to keep thinking, maybe some reading. There's some good books. I will send a few resources to you via email, where if you're interested, you can read a bit more. If you read English, you can go to my website, ericbooth.net, and many free writings there, not translated, sorry. And let that seed of curiosity grow. That's where 21st century musicians take over. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Eric. Thank
Muchas
you, Eric.
gracias.
It's been a pleasure listening to you once again. It's so revealing and so new at the same time. It's fantastic. Es revelador y nuevo otra vez. Siempre que escucho a Eric es un placer y es motivante. Creo que la mayoría de nosotros tenemos experiencia enseñando, como salió en la encuesta que hicimos al principio. Y para nosotros, para algunos de nosotros, es una parte absolutamente esencial en la vida. Enseñamos a diario. I'm saying that for most of us, teaching is such an important part of our lives, that listening to such revealing input into what we love and do is of a tremendous importance. Quiero agradecerle y quiero además destacar eso que dijo, que tal vez puede ser la enseñanza más fuerte en esto, y es que nuestro deber es generar absoluta motivación interna en el estudiante, en quien aprende. Si no se genera esa motivación, ese deseo de aprender, pues cualquier esfuerzo, cualquier cosa que uno haga va a ser realmente, no va a tener efecto, va a ser realmente superficial. Y creo que con esos tres aspectos de calidad, la autonomía en el estudiante, que es el que aprende, quien está a cargo de su proceso de aprendizaje. Lo que él denomina maestría, que es la capacidad de quien aprende para evaluar permanentemente su propio progreso. Y finalmente, esa conexión con otros, como que la motivación personal se alimenta de la motivación colectiva, y por eso es tan importante el aprendizaje en la orquesta, en el grupo de cámara. La actividad colectiva realmente tiene un poder fundamental en nutrir esa motivación interna. I was just summarizing what I thought was the most important revealing aspect of the conversation, which has to do with your reflection on the high quality learning, the intrinsic motivation, and those three aspects, that the autonomy, the mastery, and the connection with others that you mentioned. Me gustaría mucho que pudiéramos extender una invitación a Eric para que nos acompañe en futuras ocasiones, porque creo que su experiencia de tantos años y su vínculo cercano con lo que ha sido esta nueva aproximación a la enseñanza musical derivada del sistema de orquestas de Venezuela, que nos ha enseñado tanto y tantas formas de aprender y enseñar, y que en México hemos trabajado tanto. Eric, with us is one person who's like the creator of the El Sistema in Mexico from the pedagogic musical standpoint, and his name is Julio Saldaña. He's with us, and I want you to know him, because he's a champion teaching artist. in this world. So, and I know he resonates a lot with what you say. Yo le dije a Eric que le quería presentar a una persona muy especial que está con nosotros, que se llama Julio Saldaña, y que es el artífice de Esperanza Azteca desde el punto de vista de la pedagogía y de la enseñanza, y que es un verdadero ejemplo de teaching artist, de artista, de educador artista. Entonces, pues, y que quiero que volvamos a invitar a Eric en otras oportunidades en el futuro.
Muchas
Thank
gracias, Juan
you
Antonio.
once again, Eric, and it is a privilege to have you with us.
Muchas
Thank you.
gracias. Gracias. Y claro que sí. Welcome for another presentation. Thank you, Eric. Thank you.
My big pleasure. Julio Antonio, I was watching you as I was speaking to see if your face was going like this, but I think we're good.
It's my fate. It's my fault. Thank you, Eric.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
about that. Wonderful.
Bueno, ya,
Wonderful.
para terminar, quiero pues contarles que en breve les estaremos enviando información más detallada sobre la residencia, la actividad de concierto y la grabación, las grabaciones de video y de audio que vamos a realizar para finalizar todo este viaje fantástico que hemos emprendido juntos en medio de la pandemia. Yo creo que vamos a ser una especie de héroes al salir adelante con un proyecto tan ambicioso y tan bonito en la mitad del temor de tanta gente. Un abrazo a todos y espero nos veamos muy pronto.